if I look back at my high school years and even elementary, I think to myself, wow, if I had more guidance and more structure, more strategy, more help in public speaking, I would probably be in a better position. I was one of those people who did not like
Right.
public speaking. So today I have Mr. Stewart. How are you, sir?
I'm great, Tom. How you doing, my friend?
Great. You're the expert in public speaking.
Yeah, I certainly try to be. Yes.
Yeah.
So
And we connected. So that we have a lot to talk about in that school. Hey, I can always improve. And I'm sure, as we're talking, you're very analytical. But let's start here. Tell me about yourself and what you do regarding
yeah,
public speaking.
of course, Tom. Yeah, I'd be glad to. So when it comes to public speaking and communication in general, my journey started when I was a kid. So when I was little, I would say in grade school years, I had a speech impediment.
Mm,
And I stammered quite a bit. And that obviously caused a huge, I would say, chink in my armor. My self confidence, my self esteem was hit hard. So, my mom, what she did, bless her heart, is she put me through speech therapy. She gave me a therapist that I'd go to on a regular basis. She tried psychiatry, all sorts of things. Nothing worked until she gave me a public speaking coach. And so, Tom, I
wow.
learned how to overcome that speech impediment by consistently and continuously stepping outside my comfort zone in public speaking situations. It was brutal. But as you had said, I'm very analytical.
Mm,
I'm a statistician. I do a lot of research. And so what I did is at a young age is I started keeping a journal. And on the front of the journal, it said awesomeness research.
mm.
And I started keeping all these logs about my public speaking missteps, mistakes, as well as successes. Tom, this continued all the way up to high school into my undergrad and graduate program, where I collected communication and public speaking skills that worked. I tried them. I learned from feedback that was given by my public speaking coaches, as well as my listeners. I learned what worked, what didn't work, and I built my firm, the Feddersen Formula.
Wow.
So I not only focus on public speaking, but I focus on the wide gamut of all communication skills, conversational skills, public speaking, interpersonal, professional. And that's really where my journey um, left me right now as I help clients, corporations, groups really hone in on their public speaking and communication skills. Because like you said, in school, that didn't happen for me. We had to go outside of the established educational programs to
Mm.
learn how to public speak as well as to communicate with others. It's a skill that's not taught enough in schools. In fact,
Why do you think that is, though?
no, it's crazy.
Why is that?
Why is that?
Yeah.
I think I honestly think the sense of urgency behind it isn't isn't strong enough. And that's really been my mission, is to help individuals, kids, a lot of my clients are kids, understand that public speaking and communication is no longer an optional skill to have in your life. It is really a required skill. In fact, Warren Buffett,
Hmm.
he said this quote, and this kind of stresses and helps answer your question. He said this. He said 50% of your career value is in how you communicate with others and in your public speaking. And this school, and for some reason, I don't know why, the school districts and colleges just really aren't realizing that 50% of your value in life and in your career is all tied back to your public speaking. So I built my life around this, Tom. I
Hmm.
built my life around Warren Buffett's quote. When I heard this back in 2009, I'm like, I am testing this out,
I
right?
love it.
So I started doing all that I could to work with clients, and I've seen a whole lot of success, not only in my life, but my clients' life as well, by
Hmm.
honing in on that skill.
So you took a deficit, right, and you made it a positive.
Exactly.
I
It
love
was
that.
hard.
Yeah,
You
I'm
can
sure.
imagine a little stammering, stuttering kid. Yeah, it was hard. And
But when we talk about perception, right? Perception um, is, I think, in the mix of public speaking, right? People watching this now, looking at you, they wouldn't think that you're
oh
very
yeah,
charismatic or outgoing. You know, probably some people would be intimidated by the way you are. Showcasing all of your things.
yeah.
All right, so not to interrupt you, but I think like what would you say? Like public speaking is like driving a car. I don't know.
Oh,
There's so many things going on in your head.
yes. Tom, you are spot on. It is exactly like driving a car. Because really, when it comes down to it, it's like you have to be mindful of and aware
Mm-hmm.
of not only your own tendencies, but also you have to be aware of the nonverbal cues of your audience. So
Yeah,
you
we're gonna
can
get into those.
react accordingly, just like the road, right? You need to be able to see these signs in your public speaking to say, oh, this guy's falling asleep.
Yeah, right.
I may need to adjust my approach. Or, wow, this guy's on his phone. I may need to do this or that. And the biggest thing is there's self-awareness and then self-consciousness, right? Just like in driving, you need to be self-aware. You need to be aware of your own nervous tendencies. And what I teach my clients is how to channel all of those nerves into the power of your message. Because right now, like you said, no one can tell that I have a confidence problem or a social anxiety, but I do. And the way that I do it is I take all this pent up energy that's negative and channel it into something that's positive. Eye contact, smiling, hand gestures, right? Different things like that, to where you take a lot of that masking and transition it into something positive, charisma and
Mm-hmm.
confidence that influence others, right? And it took years to hone.
Yeah,
This isn't a skill that I learned overnight,
We're-
and
you,
it's
you do that
clients
well
don't learn it overnight either, right,
with your
Tom? It's
social
something
media
that you have
posts.
learned over years, and that I've learned, clients have learned. It's just like driving a car.
Now, when you said smiling, here I am listening to you and I'm engaged. You made me smile. Like, oh, I heard the word smile. Maybe
Hey,
I should
that's right.
right? That was my cue. Let me ask you these things just so we stay on track. And I love this topic. I really do. So, public speaking, right? There's a lot of preparation, engagement in the audience, mastering your content, your visual aids. Oh, God, that's a whole subcategory to itself, right?
100%.
Jeez Louise.
Yes.
Remind me if I forget, let's talk about the visual aid piece. And then seeking the continual feedback from your audience, right? All the
Absolutely.
like,
All very, very, very important things, Tom. I want to kind of just have some dialogue around the first point around kind of the preparation,
mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm,
I'm going to give you a little tip and a piece of my research. Very cool stuff that I found. The more that my clients prepared in advance. So I'm not only talking like, hey, let me review my slides. I'm talking you present in front of the mirror. You present in front of a loved one. You present in front of a significant other and you receive feedback. You prepare. What I've seen is the more people are prepared, the less I would say the less constraints
mm-hmm,
that they project in their public speaking. And what I mean by constraints, let's take filler words, for example, the the uh, the like, right? What I've seen is the more people prepare ahead of time, the less filler words are riddled throughout their presentation, the less extraneous movements there's less extraneous movements in their presentation and in their speaking, right? So what I've found is that preparation is directly correlated with being less distracting, right? Being more engaging. Because if we are saying and like and we have extraneous movements because we're fiddling with our ring because we're so nervous, right? We're channeling all that energy into our nerves and we don't even realize we do this, right? What I've seen is preparation leads to less of those things.
Interesting.
Preparation is absolutely key. And those who didn't prepare, I say, hey, Tom, how much time did you spend, reviewing your slides? Oh, just about an hour. Did you present in front of the mirror? Nah, that was weird. And then what I've seen is then I go assess their actual speech or presentation, extraneous movements, nonverbal cues that show how nervous they are and awkward they are, right? It's just all connected back to the amount of preparation they do beforehand.
But if one is really prepared, they still can, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. Still, the nervousness kicks in with the ums and all those twitchy things, right? That's hard.
Absolutely. It's so hard. And really, when it comes down to it, you've got to, I call it individuality or being human, right? What you do is you realize you're self-aware that you did that and you slipped up and you just trudge on. You continue on as if nothing ever happened. Or a big thing that I know you and I have talked about before is humor, right? Self-deprecating humor is a great way when you're in one of those situations where you feel like you're nervous, you're saying a lot of ums. A good tip that I provide my clients is, hey, bring in some self-deprecating humor, because what that does is it activates the happiness hormones in your brain. You get de-stressed and the audience gets de-stressed.
Give me an example.
Double-edged sword. So humor, self-deprecating humor, stories, right? So what I say is anytime you feel nervous or you're self-aware that you're getting into these extraneous movements, ask a question, tell a story, or bring in some self-deprecating humor into the mix. And you'll find yourself get de-stressed almost instantly. And then you're able to continue on with your presentation. So you want to strategically bring in those things and those techniques that activate happiness hormones and emotional contagions in your audience. Just like you said, the smiling.
Yeah.
If I'm giving you a genuine smile like this, my eyes are squinted, I'm giving your immediate reaction is, oh, I'm going to smile back. But if I have a nervous smile, hi, my public speaking coach told me to smile.
That's funny.
And this is what I'm doing because I'm nervous. Do you get it? So that's really what I teach is all of these things to when you start diving into these constraints and you feel yourself getting nervous, you then bring in these interventions that help turn the tide of your hormones and your stress. Pretty cool stuff.
Wow. It is. It's crazy. Yep. How about structuring your content?
Oh, yeah. So when it comes to content, Tom, you have to start out strong. Okay.
Give me an example.
And notice what I did there.
Yeah, right.
I paused.
Yes.
Okay. Here we go. I'm going to, again, give a tip to our listeners here. If you want to start out strong, I'm going to go the secret sauce to beginning and ending strong is to not come into your presentation or your speech and say, hi, my name's Stuart Feddersen. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me. What you want to do is this. I'm going to demonstrate.
Okay.
Walk in. You just got introduced. You walk in, they're clapping. You stand there 5 to 10 seconds.
Now you're intimidating.
Builds what's happening is it's building anticipation,
Yeah.
right? And again, it's the physiological thing that I'm taking advantage of. The anticipation is building, then you
Mm.
dive right into an interesting statistic, a powerful quote, or a powerful story. You don't introduce yourself, you don't do anything but dive into
Really?
that. What will happen is the audience will be transfixed.
Mhm.
They will be hypnotized by that approach. I do this in every one of my speeches, Tom. I
Mhm.
come out, pause for 5 to 10 seconds, and people are kind of looking at each other, and I say, once upon a time, there was this. And I just dive into a fable. Fables are my go to. But content and how you structure it is absolutely perfect. You need to be able to bring that into the beginning. And then every 15 minutes, Tom, you need to make sure you're re engaging with the audience somehow. That could be a chat room if you're on a virtual call, that could be asking a question, that could be telling a story, that could be asking someone in the audience to participate. You want to make sure every 15 minutes in your slide deck that you have that built in. And in the end, it's simple. You just do the same thing you did at the beginning. As you wrap up, you pause, you tell an interesting statistic, story, or a quote, and say, thank you. And you just, and applause will erupt, right? You're not making it awkward. You're not standing there and being like, and that's the end.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? So you
That's
have to
beautiful.
structure it in a way that's constantly and consistently re-engaging the audience because as human beings, dude, our attention span goes, it's gone. And
Yeah.
so what I found is every 15 minutes you want to grab it again somehow by
Well, you're saying
re-engaging.
15 minutes. How long are typically, let me just ask you that question. So, what if the presentation is a half hour?
Oh
Don't you have
yeah,
to dial that pause back instead of 15 minutes? What, 10 minutes?
absolutely. I would dive that back to 5 to 10 minutes,
Yeah.
especially if it's because Tom, this one thing you need to under a paradigm shift that every powerful public speaker has learned to understand is they're not the real stars of the show. The speaker isn't.
Right.
The real stars of the show are the audience. Is the audience. They're the ones you need to make them feel like they're the most important group or person in the room. You are there to activate all of this knowledge sharing, and passion, and individuality, understanding, light bulb moments. You're there as the facilitator for their understanding and their fulfillment.
But let me ask you
You're not
this.
the star of the show. So you need to consistently, every 5 to 10 minutes, put the attention back on them, help them feel like they're the real stars of the show.
Based on your experience, out of all the speakers, a typical speaker, I think they think they're the star of the show,
Oh, yeah.
right? What percentage
Typical.
would you say that is?
Yeah. The typical speaker is, but the transformative speaker
Mm-hmm.
knows who the real stars of the show are. Now, they can tell personal stories,
Mm-hmm.
right? They can help them really feel that sense, all those activate all those happiness hormones and sense of fulfillment and understanding and all that good warm fuzzy stuff that comes with a good presentation. But if you keep the focus on them by reaching out to them, by maintaining eye contact, there's so many things you can do to help them feel a part of your presentation. A great way, that a go-to way, is asking questions. You ask people to tell their story, you ask people to talk about their journey, you will be viewed as a transformative speaker. Why? Because so much of our, I think, Tom, so much of our time is spent blah, 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 talking when it should be listening, right? We
Right.
need to, and we need to kind of go into public speaking with that mindset of how can I make them feel through my nonverbal communication, through my eye contact, through my hand gestures, through my question asking, through my storytelling. How can I make them feel like they're the stars of the show? And if you go into that with that mindset, you're going to be viewed as a transformative speaker. They will remember you and invite you back.
Yeah,
Really.
that makes sense. All right, so we
Yeah.
talked about practice. I get that. Here we go. So I know I didn't want to forget the visual aids.
Oh, yeah.
I don't even know where to start.
Visual aids.
Well, let me
Tom.
just first ask you this: I'm going like this, like there's one behind me. The PowerPoint presentation thing that people do, that's a crutch, isn't it? Is it not?
Oh, it is. So when I it's absolutely a crutch. So I tell my clients, don't stick to the cards. You know that old adage
Yeah.
of someone has their 3x5 cards, right?
Yeah.
So I tell my clients, don't stick to the cards or the slides. That don't use them as a crutch.
Mm-hmm.
You control and you use them as a guide. So it's like your proverbial outline. You've probably seen those presentations, Tom, where they're up on stage and they're just reading from their slides.
Yes.
They're like, hey, the
Yes.
second bullet point, da 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 da. And what you need to do is you can glance back at it, but just as long as you return your attention back to the real stars of the show, right? So you can glance up there to kind of keep yourself on track and then go back. But here's a secret to visual aids. Pictures speak louder than words. Okay?
Okay.
You've probably seen those slide decks that are so text heavy.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, whoa, I'm trying to listen to the speaker and I'm trying to also follow along to and read this text heavy slide to understand your attention's bouncing back and forth. Humans can't do that. So what you need to do is one of two things. One, I would say at most 5 to 6 bullet points
Yeah.
with a picture that enhances the visual part of our brain, right? The creative side of our brain, which most of us are visual learners.
Mm-hmm.
So you
Yeah.
want a picture there. You want something to grab their attention. But and then so that's the first option. The second one is just an image. If you just have an image up there, so a good example is like, so if I'll give maybe a 1 minute example here. So I give a lot of presentations on root cause analysis. So let's say I do that in finance, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I start my presentation or I'm going along in my presentation and I want to teach someone about root cause analysis and activate that creative part of the brain, I'm going to pull up a slide of a weed. Okay, so let's build the analogy a little bit. So if I have a visual aid up there and it's a massive weed, how can we tie that back to root cause analysis? So you can look up to there and be like, man, how many of you hate weeds in here? Remember, this is like a very boring concept of root cause analysis. You want and people raise their hands and they're like, who grew up with their dad making them pull weeds like every Saturday? Oh my gosh, right here. Hey Tom, tell us about it. Oh, my dad, every Saturday, weeds would come up and I couldn't go out and play soccer until I pulled all those weeds. You
Mm-hmm.
just started activating that part of the brain just by a picture. And then you come in and say, today, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about root cause analysis,
Wow.
pulling things up at the roots. Why? Because I'm sure every one of your parents told you to, when you're pulling weeds, to pull them up at the root. See what I just did?
I love it.
Made a very boring concept, threw in an analogy and a metaphor and a picture, and now they're totally engaged. Right? So that's just
Woo.
one example. Pictures speak louder than words in decks all the time. And if you must put some bullet points in there, don't go any more than 5 or 6.
Wait,
That's
five,
where
five,
our brains start kind of wigging
five
out
or
of it.
six for how long of a presentation? What are we talking about? Five to
Start.
six, 5 to 6 bullet points per how long of a presentation?
Oh yeah. So for I would say every slide should be. So let's say you're doing a 30-minute presentation. I would time your deck to spend about 2 minutes per slide at most,
Okay.
right? So you want to spend, and again, this is all in time management. This is something that comes Once you've learned all these public speaking skills, you've got to then go and dive into time management. And that's my rule of thumb is don't go any more than 2 minutes a slide because people are going to start zoning out
Mhm.
and you're going to start losing them. So for a 30-minute slide or 30-minute presentation, 2 minutes per slide, right? You want to make it about 15 slides for a half an
Okay.
hour presentation. Does that
Okay.
help?
Okay.
Yeah.
One thing I want to make mention is that the preparation piece that I was thinking of with visual this visual piece. Too often, and listen, I'm just coming at you with just Joe average, right? In my thoughts, you have the presenter who needs the help of the tech person at the conference,
Uh-huh.
and is playing with the drive or the slides or the computer, and the nervous laugh comes to be, hang on, everybody, you got a technical issue, right? And what a buzzkill.
It is.
And I know it happens. I know it happens. But how can you justify? How can you work that out?
Yeah. You are not the first. I get this question so much, Tom. Again, I'm going to go back to anytime that happens, what you want to do is activate human connection.
Okay.
And you need to rely on various interpersonal skills to activate that human connection and individuality. Now, we as human beings, we crave that human connection and we crave
Mm-hmm.
vulnerability. We crave humanness, right? And when we see this sense of relatability in a speaker, most especially, we relate to that individual and we are just de-stressed and they're de-stressed. So let's take the technical issue, for example. My go-to thing is if something like that happens, I just go and the screen's wigging out and I can't advance the slide. I just go up to the mic and I'm like, you know what, guys? It's just my luck that this is happening to me.
Yeah.
Man, it's like I have the worst luck when it comes
Mm-hmm.
to I'm in the moment and I'm advancing my slides. Man, how many of you have dealt with this before? And they're all raising their hands like, oh my gosh. And you'll be like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and get this fixed. Give me 30 seconds. We're going to go ahead and get this fixed, but we'll come right back. So what you want to do, Tom, is you want to connect with the audience some way. You don't want to be there like going, oh no, we're having technical difficulties. We're going to need like 5 minutes. You want to bring the charisma and humanness, step out and be like, oh my gosh, really now? I swear this happens to me every time, guys. Who feels me here? Right? And you're engaging the audience. Boom, boom, boom. People are laughing. Funny, funny, ha, ha, ha. Right?
Yeah.
Everyone's de stressed. You don't want to make it awkward. You do want to make it human.
Yeah.
And the way you make it human is self deprecating humor. A lot of times, that's what I go. And when I ask my clients to prepare, Tom, I call it back pocket. And I say, all right, get a clever or charismatic or witty saying in your back pocket if you start having technical difficulties. Think about
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
now so that when you do start having it, you can pull it out and be like, oh, just my luck, man, or something like that. Also,
Mm-hmm.
if you trip, or there was one time where I was a kid and I tripped going up the stage, and this was in high school. I was at a public speaking. It was a competition. I didn't win, but I tripped going up the stage, and what I did is I rolled and then stood up and went, ta-da!
I like
Okay,
it.
do you see what you just did? I did. You laughed. So that's what I tell them beforehand: is have things in your back pocket, a joke, humor, something, a story that you can pull back out. A technical issue, be like, oh my gosh, this happened 2 years ago to me. I swear. And then you could tell that, 2 minute story of whatever technical difficulty. It's just so easy to do. It's part of your preparation. You need to
Yeah.
have all those scenarios in your back pocket ready to go.
The when an audience member can laugh at you or laugh with you, I think that's cool. Yeah.
Yep, you
All
got it.
right. So we talked strong start, making eye contact. right?
Yeah.
You're good with that. Like you're zoned in. Now, what happens when that speaker is drifting, and does that show a sign of lack of confidence,
It
or
does.
you're not prepared with your material?
Yep.
Why do eyes drift though? What's the reasoning behind that?
So it's the fight or freeze response, Tom.
Hmm.
So we as our our primitive being, right? We always we're always on our toes, right? And when we're in a public speaking situation, we feel threatened. And so as our animalistic instinct is to avoid eye contact, is to look at the exit, it's to do all those things, fight, or freeze responses, right? So we dive into those. And lack of eye contact, what that projects is lack of trust.
Yeah.
So if I'm like this and I'm darting my eyes, it looks like it just looks like I'm untrustworthy. I look sneaky, right?
Right. You're
But
lying or
if
something.
I tilt my head and I look at you with strong eye contact, right? That evokes trust. It
Mm.
evokes human connection and it shows that you're not nervous. So really, when it comes down to it, it's a trustworthy body. It's a trustworthy nonverbal cue. So the reason why we do that is because it's a masking. I call it a pacifier, right? Our eyes tend to go where we subconsciously want to go. So
Hmm.
if you think about a public speaking situation, where do you think their eyes are? And this happens to me to my client. Their eyes are always on the exit sign.
Really?
Yes.
I'm gonna pay attention to
So
that.
what they do is instead of maintaining eye contact with the audience, they're looking at the back doors because subconsciously they don't
They want
realize
out.
they're doing this. Because subconsciously your eyes go to where you want to be. And you don't want to be up on that stage. You don't want to be public speaking because it's scary. So
Yeah.
what you need to do to counteract this is I say hold eye contact for 2 to 3 seconds with as many people as you possibly can. Virtually it's easy. You just make sure you're always looking at the camera and not at your computer screens,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
You want to come back to the camera because that's the eye contact in virtual world. But
Right.
in the live world, you need to be going to one, and it's hard to count, but you need to hardwire your brain to do 2 to 3 seconds, and then you move on and you look at the next person, give them a little smile while you're maintaining eye contact. And then when someone answers a question, you are locked in. Boom. You're maintaining eye contact. So many times, a public speaker, when someone is answering the question, what are they doing? Someone's talking to you down here because you just asked them a question and they're kind of looking at their slides or just look. That person isn't feeling like the star of the show.
Yeah.
You need to, a lot of times, if it's like an open setting, Tom, I get down at their level or I sit in the chair next to them and I make it an
That's a good
intimate.
one.
So your eye contact is all there. And then all of a sudden it's like a trust. It's like everyone trusts each other, right? They trust you as the speaker, right? You trust them. It's a really cool technique. Yeah, eye contact so very important.
Do you think audience members, some of them, could be intimidated by that stare?
Yep, that's why I keep it 2 to 3 seconds.
There you go.
That's exactly why.
There you go. Or
Because
keep going, sit
anything
next.
longer than that, they're like, why is this guy staring at me? Right?
Yeah. All right. I won't hold you. Let's just go through these real quick. So projecting your voice. Talk to
Oh
me about
yeah,
that.
projecting your voice. Your voice is the key to your confidence. It's all in your diaphragm, Tom. So,
Mm.
do you know your diaphragm is the size of a fist,
You got me
clenched
doing
fist?
this.
Yeah. So, all your diaphragm is activated, right, in the lower part of your stomach, and this holds all your vocal projection and your
Interesting.
resonant voice. A resonant voice equals a confident voice. And so, what you need to do is prime your voice ahead
Mm.
of your presentation by doing my vocal warm up exercises that I teach my clients. I'll give you one. This is
Mhm.
my favorite. You hold out your arm and you pretend like you're a Shakespearean actor and you go, to be or not to be? That is the question.
Mm.
What that does is that automatically activates your resonant voice, even if you're female, it will automatically activate your diaphragm. Or another one is you say all the months of a year in one breath. January, February, March, April, May, June, July, July, August, September, October, November. Right? You say it all in one voice. That exercises your diaphragm and you're able to project your voice that much more confidently. Now, there's one thing that I want to warn our listeners of when it comes to a resonant voice and projecting your voice. It's called the upward vocal inflection.
Mm.
So many times when we are nervous, a masking technique is we go like this and we talk with a we talk with an upward vocal inflection, and it's not, it doesn't go high or low, it goes high, and it almost like we're saying, we're making a statement even though it sounds like we're asking a question, and our audience is so, you need to start high and end low, right?
Interesting.
That's what you need to do. That projects a confident voice. Start high and end low. Right there, that's your go-to. So exercise your diaphragm before your presentation to really get the resonant voice activated, and then also be mindful of your vocal inflections. Start high here and end low in your
All right.
sentences, unless you're
So
asking a question, right?
yeah. All right. So with that said, is it possible to be too overpowering with your
Oh
voice?
yeah, absolutely.
We go one way with the monotone being low, but then some people are overbearing.
Oh yeah, 110%. So it's funny you brought up the analogy of a car because that's what I teach my clients. You ever
Okay.
drive stick shift, Tom?
I love stick shifts.
Okay, so let's use stick shift as an example. What gears do you stay in most of the time?
Probably fourth.
Yep. Now match your voice to each one of the. You want to spend
Oh,
the most of your time speaking in vocal level 4. Here, I'm going to give you all the gears. Here's
yeah.
one. Here's one. It's
Mm-hmm.
fairly audible. Maybe one. Here's 2. It's a little bit louder. Here's 3. A little bit louder. Here's 4. This is where I really want to spend the most of my driving time. Here's 5. Maybe I'm here trying to get everyone excited. Here's 6. Right? Do you see what I just did?
Yeah, absolutely.
Think of it in 6 levels. Stay out of 5 and 6 and 1 and 2. You can hang out in gears 3 and 4
Yeah.
if you're telling a solemn story. So watch. If I'm telling a sad story, my vocal projection goes down to about a 2 or a 3 here, Tom, because I want the audience to feel what I am feeling. I want them to feel solemn. I want them to feel like they are part of the story.
Yeah.
Jason, see what I just did? Now I'm back
Mm-hmm.
up at 4. So you have to learn and train yourself to stay within those gears. So,
Well, would the size of the speaker have any impact on that? If you have a petite person or somebody who's small versus somebody who's,
yeah.
bulkier, does
Oh,
that?
110%. Yeah, and that's why when I'm dealing with a smaller petite individual,
Yeah.
I train them. I usually start, and especially if they have a nice petite whispery voice, right? Right. You wanna teach them at the very beginning how to project in gear 4, right? And you do these exercises to where you're like, ah, Tom, you were in 2, man. Like let's increase the volume a little bit
Let's
because
up the game.
yep, you just like you're driving. Right?
Yeah.
You wanna go up to gear 4 because that's where you want to hang out the most. So it really all is in the feedback that you receive, right? The biggest thing about my clients is I put them in pressure tests
Oh,
to
good.
where they virtually or in person give a presentation to me, and it's tough because I pick them apart, right? I
Oh,
give them
good.
that pressure test, and I tell them, hey, we got to work on this. And I really very prescriptively give them, and more often than not, Tom, voice is one of the top 5 things that I have to work on with people because there's always something in there
Absolutely.
that needs some work when it comes to project.
Sure. And the reason I asked you that question was it's a shame because if you have someone who's small, who is a great presenter in terms of information and content, that voice will just put you to sleep,
Oh,
right?
100% it will. And that's why you have to project.
Yeah.
It's not, and it's no fault of their own, right? It's part of their physiology.
Sure.
It's just their so it really is in practice, practice, practice. Something you and I are very aligned in is just you've got to prepare because your preparation is the key to everything
Yeah. All right. Just
within your
we're
day.
almost there. So managing nervousness. How do you do that?
Breathing. So I have social anxiety. And so what I do is all those things that I learned growing up to cope with it, right? And to manage that anxiety, I translated all that into my curriculum.
Mm.
Okay. So breathing techniques. What I do is pre-presentation routines and warm-ups, right? So a lot of times I will train my clients on visualization exercises to decrease the amount of anxiety going into the presentation, and then techniques they can use during the presentation to de-stress themselves. I'm going to give you one example, and our listeners one example. Before my clients even are trained on a lot of the technical aspects of public speaking, posture, gestures, voice, eye contact, slide, before I even dive into that, Tom, I help them unveil their individuality.
Mm.
Okay. A lot of people are like, Feddersen, Stuart, why are you doing that? Well, your individuality is, if you have a firm grasp and you're confident in who you are as an individual, the natural organic consequence is less anxiety,
Yeah.
less depression, less nerves. I'll give you an example. I dive into individuality by asking my clients right from the very beginning, what are you the most proud of in your life? It's a deep question.
Yeah.
Then they dive into, oh, Stuart, I'm so proud of my career. I'm so proud of my family. I'm so proud of this. And guess what? Their psych, it's a hack. It's a
Mm-hmm.
brain hack because what that's doing is it's activating all the happiness hormones in their brain and they're de-stressing themselves.
Mm.
So a lot of the visualization exercises, I train them and say, okay, if you're feeling yourself getting nervous before, during, or after, right? You ask yourself, what are you the most proud of in your life? And you can do one of 2 things. You can visualize, and once you activate that vision of who you are and as an individual is great, you are who you are, and you are amazing the way you are. Boom, just de-stress yourself. Or 2, you bring your individuality into the presentation somehow. So remember what I talked about earlier is about every 10, 15 minutes, you want to bring in something to re-engage the audience. If you're in the middle of your presentation and you're feeling yourself getting shaky or sweaty or nervous, dive into the branches of your individuality. Ask yourself, what am I the most proud of? So let's say it's family. And then find a way to activate family within your presentation somehow. You have to get creative, but this works wonders.
Give me an example how you would incorporate your family into that.
Yeah, an example. So, if I'm in the middle of a presentation, a good one is the root cause analysis, right? Or another one that I always bring to clients is conflict resolution. So, I'll give you this example.
Yeah.
Let's say I am in a high stakes meeting with a group of executives,
Mm-hmm.
and we're talking about something that is high stress, high risk, high financial risk, high compliance risk. It's just a stressful topic. Okay. I will go into this and I'm nervous, right? I'm super nervous going into this meeting. So what I'm going to do is start off by, by telling a story about what happened to me over the weekend with my family.
Good.
I'm going to go in there and be like, oh, hey, you're never going to believe what happened to my kid's baseball game. The umpire was so bad. Wow. Or you're never going to believe it. My son, it was so amazing. He's been struggling with the swings and he hit a triple. It was amazing. What you're doing, again, human connection. I just brought in a branch of my individuality into this high stress situation. It de-stressed the nerves a little bit. And then I'm able to go into this as a human being, right? Instead of just jumping into the order of business, I'm bringing in a branch of my individuality into that. I bring a lot of that into my executive presence coaching, Tom, because a lot of it is meeting facilitation and
Oh,
how to work with a team or how to work with conflict resolution. I bring all of that. And it's interesting to note that it's all in how you bring in your humanness, because that's what people, as a basic human need, really want to connect on, is your humanness. So that's one example. If you're in a presentation, you feel yourself getting nervous, visualize. Visualize your daughter out in the audience, watching you,
yeah.
so proud of you. Oh, that even brought things to me. I have
Yeah.
kids,
Hmm.
and if my son, I immediately just adjusted my demeanor. If you pray to a God, maybe that's one of your pieces of your individuality,
Yeah.
right? You visualize him being there for you during and you're de-stressed. You see what it's all in these visual techniques. Before a presentation, I have headphones on
Oh,
and I'm listening to triumphant movie scores, Braveheart, or something where I'm triumphant. And this is what I tell my clients to do. And again, it tricks their brain into visualizing themselves being triumphant, and they're able to go into it less stressed,
hey.
right? It's all in activating that humanness and bringing in your individuality that de-stresses you and the audience. The reason why it
Yeah.
de-stresses the audience is because they want to connect with a human, man. They don't want to connect with a robot. They don't want to connect with a zombie up there. They want to connect with another human being.
I'm glad you brought that point up because I've done the same thing when I think of, my wife or my kid out there in the audience. Yeah, that's a great point. All right,
Yeah,
I promise. Two things.
it works. It works wonders.
Yep. Real quick, real quick. How much stock should we put as a speaker into criticism or feedback, right? Because if you ask somebody a question or 10 people the same question, you'll get 10 different answers. So how do you formulate and come to a conclusion based on their criticism as to what you should do, not do? Is there any value in that? I don't know.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that is that is absolutely key. You cannot go into learning how to public speak without being willing to take and receive feedback.
Yeah.
You can't do it. And I think it really comes down to like uh, the way that you're able to the resilience, right, and the conviction in yourself to say, "Wow, I'm self-aware that I do this a lot. Thank you, public speaking coach, for telling me this. Now I'm going to try to do my best not to do that thing." So a part of my coaching is I have what's called the Feddersen formula calculator, and it
Okay.
gives objective scores to every single one of my public speaking skills. So I say, when it comes to vocals, you're at 3 out of 5, Tom. I'm not saying you are, your voice is
Yeah.
awesome,
All right.
but you're at a 3 out of 5. Here's what we need to do to work on that. And so what you need to be willing to do is check yourself before you wreck yourself, is what I tell my clients. Because if you don't know that you're projecting too many filler words or you're projecting nervousness, we don't know a lot of these masking things that we do, that we tend to do, and we need someone else to tell us. So feedback is absolutely crucial to becoming a more powerful and transformative public speaker, because if we don't know what we don't know and we don't realize what we don't realize. So you need to be able to ask for feedback. I made it a point, Tom, while I was building my curriculum,
Yeah.
that I would go back to the audience. I would go back to my public speaking coach and say, just tell me what I did wrong. oh, Stuart, you spoke too fast here. You did this, you did that. Because if she didn't tell me that, Tom, I wouldn't be in the place that I am today,
Yeah.
right? Feedback is so important to becoming that transformative. You have to ask for it. If nobody's giving it to you, you go ask for it. You go seek it, because then, that's when your perception and your confidence and charisma really are and strengthened, really, when it comes down to it, because now you know what not to do or what to do.
I wonder though how many speakers are open to criticism, but that's to be determined. I get that.
Yes. Oh,
Right.
yeah. I would tell you, just
Now I know all.
succinctly, it's all of them. Even every one of my clients is like, ugh. They see the Feddersen formula score and they're like 3 out of 5. Ouch.
That's funny.
But then that's what a coach does. Right? I'm not here to be like, a coach is just like in a coach in sports. You have to tell them and develop them. It's not in that they're perfect, right?
Yeah.
You need to find those things that they need to improve on, and then give
Yeah.
them, stretch them, right, to help them improve.
All right, Stuart. Listen, I'm gonna let you go. Stuart Feddersen. Tell us more about your company again, real quick, before we leave.
Sure thing. Yeah. So my company is the Feddersen Formula, Communication Elevated. So I'm a public speaking and communication coach. I teach executive presence, communication, one-on-one. I do this on one-on-one basis. I do this in group sessions, organizations across the country. I love doing it. It's really my passion, is helping to activate that in other individuals. I use the 3 C's to do this, which is charisma, confidence, and credibility. I really love helping my clients hone in on those 3 C's, because those are the key to really being a powerful, powerful communicator. You can all follow me on TikTok. I share tips daily on communication as a whole. So if you really would love to go in and do that, be sure to check me out at Feddersen Speaks, or you can just Google me, Stuart Feddersen, and you can find my TikTok there. A bunch of
Okay.
online courses. I also have those. Feel free to go into my website, click on online courses, and really just strengthen that the potential that everyone has to become that transformative communicator, the skill
It's a
that we all
thing,
need to
Stuart.
learn.
You're doing an awesome job, and I appreciate it. I'll let you go. It's just the
Sure.
power of public speaking. It's just so fascinating to me. I know I can go on about it, but it's so fascinating, and you're doing a great job.
Thanks. Hey, Tom, thank you, my friend. And I
Yeah.
certainly appreciate you inviting me on here. I'd love to come back sometime.
All right, Stuart. Thanks. I'll talk to you
Yeah, you
soon.
betcha.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye bye.